guys, it's Katie, and today we're going to be going over the class challenges for the Hogwarts house battles. So the class challenges are basically reading challenges you guys can complete throughout the month of September to earn you 50 extra house points towards your main goal. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into each one. There are 16 challenges you guys can complete throughout the week. Now you can double up, triple up, whatever you want on challenges. If you find one book that covers 2 classes, you can go ahead and count both challenges, because I don't think it's realistic to expect anyone to read 16 books, and I want you guys to, complete as many challenges as you want, earn as many points as you can. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and go through each challenge and explain it more in depth for you guys. So the first class is astronomy, and for this, the challenge is to only read this book at night. So when it's dark outside, read this book. You can't read it during any daylight hour, so you have to wait till nighttime to read this book. Pretty self-explanatory, I think. The next challenge is charms, and this is to read a new to you book. So a book that, maybe you haven't heard of, a friend recommended to you, a book that, you have not read before, that you kind of just heard of, you haven't heard of really, a book that's new to you. Doesn't have to be a new book, but a book that, say you have never heard of Throne of Glass, go ahead and read it, whatever. The next class challenge is Defense Against the Dark Arts, and this challenge is to read a book that you previously put down. So say you started reading a book, maybe you weren't really in the mood for it, then you put it down, you kind of forgot about it, or you maybe got halfway through, put it down to read something else, some book that you just put down, didn't get to. I'm not going to make you guys read like DNF books, because I don't think you should read things you really don't want to read, but maybe it's a book you did want to read and you just haven't gotten around to it. You maybe read a few pages, set it down, whatever. Read that book. The next book is Flying, and the challenge for that is to read your most anticipated book. So it could be a new release, it could be an old release, just a book that maybe was hyped, that you're excited for, and you never really got around to. The next class challenge is Herbology, and the challenge for this is to read a book that means a lot to you. So, a book that maybe you've previously read that you love so much. Basically, it's just to read a book that has impacted you in some way, or that you really love. Harry Potter, for instance. Just a thought. The next class is History of Magic, and this challenge is to read a book from a different generation. So this could be kind of broad. I would say either read a book that was written maybe in a different generation from you. So like, I was born in the 90s. If I read a Stephen King book that was written in like the 70s, that's a different generation. Or you could also read a book that takes place in a different generation. So like, you're a millennial, read it like Daisy Jones in the 6 because it takes place in the 70s, that kind of thing. Or you can even read a book like Clockwork Princess that takes place in the 1800s. Basically, just read a book that doesn't take place in the modern age that you were born. Like, read a book, or even, if you were born in the 60s, go ahead and read a modern book from like the 2000s. Basically, you're just going to read a book that takes place in a different lifetime than you grew up in, basically. The next challenge is the next class is Potions, and this challenge is to read a genre that you wouldn't usually pick up. So if you're not into fantasy, read a fantasy book. You don't really like contemporaries, go ahead, try a contemporary, just read something that's kind of out of your comfort zone, but don't be miserable about it. The next class is Transfiguration. And this challenge is to read the last book that you bought. That's kind of self-explanatory. Just read the last book that you acquired. The next class is Arithmancy. I can't pronounce words. But this is to read a book with a number in the title. Now this can be an actual numerical number, or it could be a word for a number. Read that book. The next class is Care of Magical Creatures, and this is to read a book with an animal on the cover. The next book is the next class is Divination, and this is to read a predicted 5-star read. So any book that you think will be 5 stars or that's been super hyped, read that book. The next class is Muggle Studies, and this is to read a hyped book. So a book that you maybe been hearing about on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, wherever. If it's been hyped up and people are excited about it and you can't stop hearing about it, read that book. The next class is the study of ancient runes, and this is to read a classic novel, so, you know, pick you up some Pride and Prejudice or Jane Eyre or whatever. Next class is Alchemy, and this is to read a book that was recommended to you by a friend. Now, this can be a friend you know in real life, or it could just be a recommendation from another booktuber that maybe you don't talk to, but it's still a recommendation, so it counts. And the final class is Apparition, and this is to only read a book in public. I know, I'm sorry, you probably hate me, but you know, public can also be your back porch. I mean, you're outside, right? There doesn't have to be people around. Or, you know, have friends over and have a reading party. That's public, right? Or read in the company of your cat. That's public, right? But yeah, that is all the class challenges for this readathon. Let me know if you guys have any questions down below. I will link in the description the video that I made explaining everything, and also link the Twitter page so you guys can access everything for this readathon. But yeah, I'm excited for September, and I hope you guys are too, so I'll see you in my next video. Bye!